Hi everyone, this is Yvette here. Today I'll be touching on a topic that is a little different from my past videos. I'll be touching on executive condominiums, not just Coasta Cabana that you see behind. Even if you're not looking at this project, it is also important to know what I have to share with you today because I'll be touching on executive condominiums, eligibility, financing, the price disparity gap as a whole. So today's content will be touching on the eligibility, the buyer profile, the price disparity between an EC and a condo, then also, I know, a bit long, but HDB Plus and Prime versus EC, the recent and upcoming EC pricings, as well as the loan eligibility. Before you see number 6, then I'll cover Costa Cabana. EC eligibility, do take note that this is for new EC specifically, because if you're buying into a resale EC that has already hit its MOP or it has been 10 years fully privatized, it is on a whole new eligibility altogether. For new EC, it's a bit more stringent, which I would say this class, right, is really not for everyone. First things first, you are either a joint single, you're 35 years old and above, or you could potentially buy as a family nuclear so long as you are above 21 years old. I've met clients who bought under 3 people before, the husband, wife, and the sister, thereby allowing them to be able to afford a 4-bedroom brand new EC compared to a 3-bedroom if it were just to be 2 people, husband and wife. Do take note that whether is it 2, 3 or 4 people, your total household income remains the same at a ceiling of a maximum of $16,000. Of course, another one, having not owned any local or overseas private properties. You may be wondering, all the ECs are 90 or 100% sold. Who are the people buying? Of course, it could be either a first-time buyer, you haven't bought any properties in Singapore, or it could be you bought in a resale HDB and you didn't take any grants at all. Because the moment you took a grant, whether you bought as a BTO direct from HDB or you bought a resale HDB and you took grants, whether it's PHG with the proximity grant or any CPF grants in general, you will be automatically categorized as a second-timer, which can reduce your chances if you were to buy a new EC. I'll touch a bit more on that later. If you have questions in terms of whether you are eligible or how your financings work out, whichever category you belong to, please feel free to reach out and I'll be more than happy to help you. Secondly, I'll be touching on the EC versus condo price disparity gap. In March 2025 this year, Aura of Tampines in the Tampines North area sold 90% at an average price of $1,766 per square foot. Is this price high? Yes, I think so. But however, knowing that 2 weeks ago, a brand new private condo, Parktown Residence, of course it is an integrated development, it has shopping mall, it is directly linked to the MRT as well. Just 2 weeks earlier, so an average of $2,360 per square foot, just down the road in the map that you can see over here. For the buyers who are eligible and bought in Aura of Tampines, knowing that your neighbor just across the street already transacted 2,300 per square foot, whereas you can buy in at 1,700, 1,800 per square foot, is that a safe buy? I think you know the answer yourself. Of course, we don't just want to compare this EC versus a new launch condo, correct? We also want to dive into how about the resale condos that have recently reached its TOP, and then we take all these prices into comparison. For Pasir Ris 8, that is also in the east region of Singapore, TOP this year 2025, you see the average transacted pricing of the past year has already crossed 2,000 per square foot. We are not just taking one outlier transaction, but however, you see on average, all these transactions in the recent months has already crossed 2,000 per square foot. For a condo that has just TOP, the first owners who bought direct from developer have sold in the resale market at this price point. Then also we have Treasure at Tampines, a whopping 2,203 units in the Tampines area, TOP a little bit older in 2023, about 2 years old. The highest transacted price here is 1,987 per square foot. It's very close to 2,000 already. As a buyer who is eligible and bought in Aura of Tampines, I'm sure you also know the numbers. One thing is, of course, the new launch has already crossed 2,300 per square foot. Then now you have the recent newer condos in the area that has already crossed 2,000 per square foot. You already know that you are buying into a so-called built-in profits already just because of this gap that we have. But Aura of Tampines, do they also know that right beside them, the Tenet EC bought in way cheaper? Of course they do. But here's the thing, I cannot bring you back to Tenet times. Neither can I bring you back to years ago where you have like Tampines Trillion or even Sea Horizon in Pasir Ris area. I can't. But this is the fact of where the numbers are moving forward in the market. Of course, we don't just want to buy because of FOMO. We don't just want to rush into things. We do have to dive into all these numbers. Then we see whether these numbers make sense and whether we are buying into a safe entry product. Then because in the BTO sector, there is now the standard, plus and prime model, being on the ground, speaking to a lot of young buyers, I realized that there is a little bit of a knowledge gap. Of course, I think a lot of people know it by, oh, you're buying into a central area, you're buying a bit closer to town or closer to MRT, and they know that they are subjected to a 10 years MOP. But my question is, I feel that a lot of people have not yet looked at things from a long-term perspective. Because buying into a plus or prime model BTO, do take note that you have about 4 to 5 years of construction, then you still have to fulfill 10 years of MOP, which means whatever you're buying into today, let's say you select a unit today, you must ensure that this unit satisfies your family's needs in terms of location, but more importantly in terms of size for the next 14 to 15 years. Because honestly, 14 to 15 years, a lot of things can happen. It may go from a couple, just husband and wife, like a dink lifestyle, to eventually 1 or even 2 kids. Or what I see some families is they also meet into situations whereby the parents need to move in them, and eventually they are very tight on space. But yet, because subjected to a 10 years MOP, you can't move. There's also something to bear in mind whether the size is truly what you want, because in the plus and prime BTO, what we realize is also there is no longer any 5-room HDB put on the market. Another thing is also, as a resale buyer buying from you in the future, you are also subjected to the income ceiling as the same as you. Let's say a household, you subjected to a 14K income ceiling, which I feel this is quite detrimental because being on the ground and having sold $1 million HDBs, right, what I realized is a lot of them are high income earners. What I mean by that is a lot of them are earning 16K, 18K or even like 20K for them to be able to afford this. Or they will have came from a private property and then looking to downgrade to a HDB. But whereas for plus and prime for the resale market, right, you do have to fulfill the 30 months wait-out period if you were to have disposed of a private property. All this, right, is really macam you're buying a BTO lah. But also at the same time, your loan eligibility is the same lah as for you were to buy any HDB. Whereas for new EC, right, your MOP is just 5 years. So 4 years waiting plus 5 years, that's about like a 8 to 9 years way out period. Should you decide to change of location, or should you decide I need a bigger space for my family, you can do that in a much shorter time frame. But also at the same time, there's no subsidy clawback and also no such restrictions if you were to sell in the resale market. Your next buyer don't have any income ceiling, no ethnic quota. It could be a single PR, single SC coming to buy. The only restriction is that you cannot sell to foreigner lah. But most of the time in EC locations, it's not really favorable for foreigners. And also with the 60% ABSD, I think the market is out of the window already. Upon 5 years MOP, these are profiles that you can potentially sell to. And also good news is that your resale buyer will be eligible for a higher loan quantum. It's as though they buy a resale EC, right, and they buy a private condo, it's the same. They can loan almost double of what they would have loaned for a BTO or a new EC. I'll cover that a bit more later. What are the upcoming EC launches in 2026 and 27? Here the list, I think one very telltale sign is that the prices are increasing because land cost is getting higher and higher, thereby translating to a higher price tag that consumers us now have to pay. The most upcoming ones would be Coasta Cabana, which I'll be touching a bit more later because the pricings as well as the layouts are already out. Plus we have Revel Tampines that is in Tampines West, walking distance to MRT also actually. This is also something to look forward to. Then we have Senja, Sembawang. All these are a bit more west and also made primarily north. If you are looking at the east region, you only have 2 ECs to look out for, which is Costa Cabana and Revel Tampines. Here you can see exactly which location they are at. One is of course right beside E-Hub, right beside Downtown East in Pasir Ris. Between E-Hub and also Sea Horizon is currently an open air car park that they are building up this EC. Then we have Rival Tampines, which is walking distance to Tampines West MRT as well. In the East region, we can take the most recent Aura of Tampines as a price comparison, as well as seeing the developer, seeing the number of units and how that may compare or that may translate us in the upcoming 2 ECs. Aura of Tampines by Simlian, number of units 760 units. But here the price point, you see that when it launched, it started from 1651 per square foot. Then you see the highest transacted actually very close to 1,009 already. And also the average of 1766 per square foot, which we saw in the news article earlier. Then for developers, right, on top of whatever they paid for the land, they do have to factor in other costs such as the construction cost, which is the most bulk of it, as well as their permits, their marketing costs, etc. Then they translate into a break-even price. Then from the break-even price, they will add in a profit margin as to how much they want to earn from this project, and thereby translating into the eventual selling price. For Coasta Cabana, the one in Pasir Ris that I'll be talking about earlier, developer has already announced that they'll be starting from 1639 per square foot, which is a bit lower than Aurel actually. But I think the eventual selling price would be very close to what Aura has transacted, which is 1718 per square foot. I think we will eventually reach that price point. Of course, I will always prepare my clients to buffer for a little bit more. We cannot just rely on the starting from prices because most of the time that will be that so-called worst or like that cheapest unit, and it's usually that one and only that no have already, then the rest will be priced a lot higher. So we do have to prepare for that in terms of like buffering for the budget, such that when it comes to shortlisting of units and booking of the units, you have a bit more room to play with, you have a bit more choices, and you won't be stuck on the standstill. Because on launch day, I have seen some buyers, right, still scrambling and like calculating because they see units start taking up already, right? Then they think about like upping their budget, which I feel by then is a bit too late. For me, what I do for my clients is we come in a bit more prepared. Even before booking day, I'll be meeting them for quite a few late nights actually, for 2 to 3 times, just to crunch down the numbers, the possible scenarios, and what we could potentially choose, because we don't want to wait until the last minute before we scramble. After Costa Cabana, shortly after there will be Rival Tampines by Simlian, 572 units, which is still quite decent. They purchased the land at a bit higher at 768 per square foot, which I think the selling price could exceed 1,009 per square foot actually for the highest selling price. Next, we move on to EC financing, which I'm very excited about because I feel that EC number 1 is not for everyone. There is quite a bit of loan restrictions, which thereby you take lesser loan, which means you have to cough out a bit more in cash as CPF. But yet at the same time, there is quite a bit of misconceptions that people may have, which I will address this shortly. First things first is that EC runs on an MSR loan framework, which is the borrowing power that you have. It takes into account 30% of your income in order to derive your loan amount. Whereas for the private condo sector, under TDSR, which is the total debt servicing ratio, is at 55%. So if let's say, right, you can loan up to say 2 million for a private condo. In the new EC market, right, you can only loan about 1 million. So your loan is significantly lesser, about half. But yet at the same time, you are subjected to the income ceiling of 16K. So that is when the loan can be a bit tough. But not to worry, there are a few ways that we can work around this. But sometimes I feel this is not a one-size-fits-all. Because every family or like every couple's needs, goals, and financial situation is different. So I would say if you need a bit more detailed calculation and like a discussion of how's the market going, what may work best for you and your family, feel free to call me. I'll be more than happy to have a consultation with you. So back here, right, MSR 30% loan assessment. If you and your husband were to earn a total income of $16,000, your max loan amount is about $1 million only. So if you were to purchase a EC at 1.5 to even like 1.6 million, right, that will mean that you have to cough out about 500 to 600,000 in cash and CPF. Which then my question is, how many of us have that amount of savings It's not much. So actually a lot of people who buy into ECs, they do have bulk financing from their families or they get a bit of help from there. But also at the same time, right, bear in mind that the income ceiling is typically based on your monthly base salary. So one workaround is that if you were to have a good base salary to be well within the income ceiling, but yet at the same time you have healthy bonuses, that could be one way to boost your loan eligibility because that one is assessed by the bank. So one way is if you were to earn the same amount of income, but yet you have, let's say, 48,000 bonus, that will potentially bump up your max loan amount to about 1.18, very close to 1.2 million. So you can see how the loan, right, increased by close to 200,000, which means your cash and CPF, you will have to fork out 200k lesser. Could that potentially make a difference? I think definitely so, because 200k in cash and CPF is really a lot of money. But that being said, right, there is also other ways of financing, such as the normal versus deferred payment scheme. One way is that you go by deferred payment scheme because the income ceiling of $16,000, right, is determined at the point of booking. Which means you go by deferred payment, you pay 20% cash upfront. You don't take a loan first. You take a loan at a later period of time, nearing to TOP, and let's say by then you earn 18k or even like 20k income because by then you already booked the unit. But from here, you can potentially be eligible for a higher loan quantum. But of course, I have clients who go for this route. It's very important to work out the possible scenarios because it's very hard to have a crystal ball in terms of how much you can earn in the future. So we do have to play a few scenarios. What if you earn 14k? What if you earn 16k? What if you were to earn 18k? What's the cash top-up difference? That one, is it comfortable for you or not? Because if it's a bit too optimistic, that's when I tell my clients, we take a step back. We reevaluate, we work through the numbers again, and we plan from a more conservative approach. So that being said, it is also possible for second timers while staying put in the current HDB and you buy a new EC and you wait for it to build, right? No ABSD is payable. But again, the finances is very important because EC financing is really very technical. It's very different from buying just a resale HDB, very different from buying a new launch or even a private condo. This one really involves like bridging loan, MSR, your loan eligibility and all that. Also, you do need to get professional help on this. Do seek someone to run through your numbers because you don't want to end up booking a unit, paying that 5% in cash, and then subsequently realize you cannot pay for it. So I think it's very important to know. So now, we'll be diving into Coasta Cabana that is coming out very soon in December. As mentioned earlier, this is where we're at. In between E-Hub and Sea Horizon, which means you do have bus stop at your doorstep and you also have your fair price, your eateries at the other doorstep as well. But if you look at the map, right, some marketing it as walking distance to Pasir Ris MRT. I don't think so. I think it's too far of a walk. I think you take bicycle still okay, or if you drive still okay, but you definitely need to take a bus. But that being said, right, for Costa Cabana, the booking timeline is very different from the other recent ECs, such as Orel, Autoplace is very different. So this one, you got to pay attention, yeah? The preview and the e-app period is starting very soon on the 6th December. And then the show flat will be closed. The application will be closed for an entire month. And then the booking day will be on 17th January. Why are they doing it differently? This is such that the booking day itself, there will be no second timer quota, no more. Just because they are launching the project 1 month later, they can do without this. Of course, this is not the first time an EC is launched this way. We've had Ola as well as Purmont Grand launching in this manner, but I would say there is good and bad. Good for the second timers because there is no second timer quota. But bad for the first timers because they can no longer have a priority in terms of booking. Maybe to give you a bit more context, right? If we were to compare to Orel of Tampines, the preview period lasts for 2 weeks and then the booking is immediately after. What happens is that on launch day, there is a 30% second timer quota. Which means, right, whether you're a first timer or second timer, all the ballots are rounded up together. But on the booking day itself, the moment the second timers hit 30% of the units available, right, The rest of them, okay, goodbye, go home already, which is what we saw at about 3-4 p.m. of Orel's launch. So that gives the first timer a bit of an advantage because once the second timers all go home already, the remaining 70%, right, the first timers still can go on booking. And then from booking day 1 month later, that is when, should there be any leftover available units, the second timers can come in to book. So what Coasta Cabana does is that they do without this whole second timer scheme, and then 1 month later is the booking day. So no second timer quota. Everyone is like treated the same. But however, this point of time, right, because preview and e-app period is just 2 weeks. So imagine from 21st December, the last day, all the way to 17th January, in between, if you want to view the show flat or if you want to put in your e-application, you cannot do so. And also at the same time, it's very important when you are there during the preview, you better look closely. You better look at exactly which stacks are at, where it's facing where, because in the meantime, right, you cannot see a show flat. So you must have very good memory because you have a 1 month get to booking day. And sometimes usually on booking day, you cannot go and see the model. So you don't have time already. So you do have to do your homework very much in advance as well. Also for those, right, who don't even know about the project, in between they want to view, also too late. So better choose all your friends who you think may be eligible, or if you are thinking whether you're eligible and you want to give it a shot, right, take note of the dates as well because you don't want to miss this. Then now we move on to how Coasta Cabana looks like. It is sea-facing as what they market to be. But what I realized is that it's only one facing that is sea-facing. So majority of project is not sea-facing, so just take note. So project information, it is jointly developed by 4 developers. You have Qingjian, 4C, ZD, and Jianan. A total of 748 units. The expected vacant possession is about 2029. Nothing much to shout about. It will be 11 stories and all that . So the unit mix are as such. There are a bit more layouts if we were to compare to Orel. So we gotta look very closely as to what are the differences. So you see here from 3 to 4 to 5 bedrooms. Primarily it's still the 3 and the 4 bedrooms. When you look at the 5 bedrooms, there are only 22 units. So if you have the financial capability and if you are aiming for a 5 bedroom, we really need to pray for the ballot number to be good. So then moving on to the site plan, as mentioned earlier, this site is actually where it will be sea-facing. So you can see it's only these few stacks. Only 8 stacks will be sea-facing. But not only that, because in front of you, there are low-rise buildings. If let's say you want sea-facing, not only must you make sure that you buy that stack, right? You must also have a certain height clearance to make sure that you can see the sea. Because if you buy into this stack, and you're only on the second or the third floor, I think it'll be hard. But that being said, right, it also depends on what is the price premium that the developer is going to price this stack for. It could be 50k, it could be 100k, then you really got to work out your numbers whether this premium is worth paying for. So to orientate you a little bit, this is where eHub is. On your left, then on the right side is Sea Horizon. Then in front of you here, you are facing other HDB blocks. So I would say I really like the landscaping and how the developer or the architect has designed the entire development. Later on, as we see more photos, you'll come to realize this stack in between is more garden, it's more like greenery, grass, that kind of feel. But what I like is that there is 2 50-meter lap pool. And also at the same time here, right, you do have water features. You have a tennis court as well as your function rooms and gyms and all that, which is quite nice. Moving on, this is the grand entrance that I love. Because if you are looking for an EC that is different from any other project, right, I feel in the resale market in the future, this one will definitely stand out. Why I said so is because the moment you walk in, there is a grand arrival. But not only that, beside the grand arrival, there is this lounge. There is high ceiling. It looks very grand in general, like the moment you drive in or like your visitors drive in. But not only that, as long as you're driving across the road of eHub Sea Horizon, that road which is quite easily accessible, then you'll be like, wow, this condo looks very nice. And that can potentially attract your future buyers next time. So then this is the lounge area that we mentioned earlier. Then this is the grand arrival. So they make it into a very hotel feel actually. So when you do drop off from here or when you walk into the development, you do have all these stairs leading up. So you see the entire landscape or like the entire building is being elevated in this way. that can give you a bit more height difference comparing to the other developments nearby. But of course, if you are wheelchair bound, if you can't walk up the stairs, also there is a lift lobby that can lead you from this drop-off point up to the landscape deck as well. I really like this because recently I've been serving buyers. We went to Tampines area, Pasir Ris area as well. We do find that certain developments do lack in this factor because you drive in, like that only. You don't have the condo feel. You feel like, I'm just driving the HB. Then what's the point of buying an EC? No, I'm just kidding. But that being said, this is also something to take note of. This is the grand entrance. So imagine you drop off, you walk up the stairs, right? This is what you see, a central pavilion. I think really not bad. If you didn't tell me this is an EC, I wouldn't have known because it really looks like a full-fledged condo. It has more than what normal ECs have to offer. So back here, this is the lifestyle pool, the sky, the cabana, which reminds me a little bit of Santorini, the palm trees and the lounge area. Then most importantly, this is the clubhouse. So earlier on, we saw the entrance, the lounge with the high ceiling. This is where the bulk of the other facilities are at. You have your gym here, you have yoga studio, social club, but more importantly, right, on this side, there are a total of 4 function rooms, which you can potentially combine 1 and 2, break it down and combine into one large room, or combine 3 and 4, you can also do that. So at the basement, you have games room, your music room, karaoke room, even at which I think, this EC has everything that they need and more. So enough about me wowing about the facilities and the landscaping. And now we move on to the more important part, which is the layouts. So bear with me because there are quite a few layouts to compare, and also at the same time, at this point of filming, there are no dimensions given. So I've tried my best to measure the main door versus the other layout's main door and try to make it to scale as much as possible. So bear with me a little bit. So now we have the 3-bedroom deluxe at 872 square feet. We have C1A and C1B. Putting these 2 layouts side by side, right? Honestly, same size, same layout. The only difference, zoom in here, is this side. It's the ventilation window of the master bathroom. One is facing outwards. The other one is facing internally to your aircon ledge. Why is that so? It's because for C1B, you notice that they are side by side. Meaning to say they are sharing a wall with each other. So then it's very hard for the ventilation window to be facing like that side. So no choice. The ventilation window has to be here. But this is just fun fact because I was looking very closely as to what's the differences. Then I realized, just this small thing. But I would say for this 3-bedroom deluxe, it does have everything that you need because your kitchen is over here, you have your yard, you have your bomb shelter, you have all your 3 rooms that can comfortably fit a queen-size bed, as well as your bathrooms have windows as well. One thing I like is that at the corridor here, you do have another window out for cross ventilation. So this layout, I would say 872, it has everything that you need already. Of course, it's a 3-bedroom compact. So next, we move on to the pricing. The developer has given the starting from pricing at 1649 per square foot, which translates to starting from 1.438. As mentioned earlier, it's important to not just take the starting from prices. We have to buffer in a little bit. So I'm just assuming the prices are on an average, same as Oriel at 1,766. Assumption, maybe, or just to buffer a bit more budget. This could potentially be about 1.54 million for the 872 square feet one. So moving on to the 915 square feet, right? I really quite like this layout. It's because compared to the 872 that we saw earlier, this one do have an additional study over here. Then comparing to just now, right, you may realize that the kitchen a bit small. This one make up for it because it's a bit longish. You have your fridge here, your bomb shelter here as well. But do take note, for Coasta Cabana or a lot of ECs, right, they do not provide you with washing machine. They don't provide you with fridge, so you have to buy yourself. But this is to show you where you can potentially place your appliances. But of course, your other kitchen appliances such as your hob, your hood, as well as your sink and your toilets, all that aircon are provided for, so don't worry. So comparing the 2 layouts, of course, you enter in, you directly face the dining area, very similar to earlier. The thing is, your kitchen is a bit longish, and also at the same time, very key thing here, you do have a study, which potentially, right, this study, I would say is very comfortable because imagine you have like 2 kids, opposite gender, they cannot share a room, and then you still need a home office or a separate study area for you or for them. you do have this additional space without paying for too much. Why I say that is because 915 square feet, right? Assuming again the average of 1,766 per square foot, for just a little bit more, you can potentially buy in this at about $1.62 million. So I would say this could potentially give you an edge in the resale market in the future as well. Then we move on to the 4-bedroom D1, D2, D3. Just take note, the middle one is the show unit, which when you go down the show flat, you'll be able to visualize. The other floor plans, you need to visualize yourself lah. So basically this one, right, what I noticed is the bedroom size is different. Everyone is different. This one, you notice, D1, you can only fit a single size bed. D2, right, you can fit a queen size bed, but you have to push all the way to the window. But D3, right, you can fit a queen size bed and still have a little bit more room at the side lah. But besides that, I would say not too much of a difference. Your D1 and D2 kitchen is exactly the same. The only difference is your 2 bedrooms, correct? But I would say D3 is when it's a bit more different. You do have your dry kitchen when you do come in earlier. So I would say for Coasta Cabana, when I go into the show unit, the only question is where do I put my shoes? Because you can only put here, which eats into your dining area. Or potentially, right, you put at your doorstep, 2排. You put 2 stacks at the side because thankfully your entrance got a bit of room lah. But besides that, I think it's a bit hard to fit in the shoe cabinet lah. I would say for this one, right, either go for a D2 or D3 because for D1, right, the fact that your 4th bedroom can only fit a single size bed, right, then you might as well go for a 3-bedroom premium. You get 3 proper size bedrooms and then you get a study which looks very same size as these two. But that being said, right, for ECs, meaning to say, right, for ECs, because the take-up rate is so high, sometimes depending on your luck, depending on your queue number, you may not even get what you want. Then you definitely have to prepare for your 2nd, 3rd, 4th choice of layout, which in most cases, if let's say D2, D3 all taken up, then your 3 premium also all gone, then you only left with D1, then no choice lah. But of course, we have to make sure and we have to run through the numbers in terms of affordability, in terms of budget, whether this is comfortable for you. Sometimes don't compromise for the sake of compromising. You do have to run through the numbers as well. So the developer has given a guide for 4-bedroom, specifically for the 990 square feet, starting from 1.623 million. But I would say assuming an average of 1,007 per square foot, right, this would be the pricings that you do have to prepare for lah. But again, if you need help running your numbers, my QR code is there. You can WhatsApp me at any point of time. Then move on to the 4-bedroom premium. This one, very different. So this one, a 4-bedroom standard, right, is still not too bad. But when you move on to 4-bedroom premium, right, 你会看到眼花缭乱. Meaning to say you'll see until like blur, yeah. But never mind, I'll break it down for you. So D4, very similar to D3, but anyway. So walk in immediately your dry kitchen, your kitchen area, right? Then you do have a good size 4th bedroom. The 3 common bedrooms are pretty much very, very same size. But the difference here is that you have a study that is right beside your master, as well as you got a walk-in wardrobe, which can give you a bit more space in that sense. So these are the main difference. When I look at it offhand, naked eye without any dimensions, right, I do think this 100 square feet goes into a study as well as the walk-in wardrobe lah. Then besides that, not much difference. Whereas for D4B, you have an additional balcony here. But for D5, a bit different. So I zoom in for you. For D5, you take these 2 side by side. D5, your kitchen is significantly bigger, which I feel if you do cook or you appreciate a bit more kitchen space, right, this one would definitely be something that you look out for. Because the moment you walk in, yes, you have your dry kitchen, but your wet kitchen is a bit longer. But also at the same time, right, this is a bit more like a 4-bedroom plus flexi, because you have this flexi area over here, which essentially, right, your living and dining is a very, very big space. Potentially, if let's say you don't need to build up this area for additional study area, keep it open, this one will give you a very good landscape living and dining, which I feel will give you an edge above any other competitors in Pasir Ris or even Tampines area, because this landscape and living dining is really very rare in the EC market. Most of them are portrait. So if you can get a landscape, right, go for it. But that being said, right, this flexi area also translates to your balcony being a bit bigger. Then you don't have the master bedroom balcony. That's why you see this 1216 and 1206 square feet actually very similar. But the kitchen orientation is completely different. The study / flexi is also very different. So if given a choice, I would go for D5. But that being said, one gripe that I have is that this kitchen wall cannot be hanged. So if you want to change your kitchen orientation to an open concept or like to a bar counter concept, you can't, because this middle one is a structural wall. How you see structural, right, is usually dark grey in color, whereas the other ones that you see over here between the bedrooms, right, they are hackable. But most of the time, you won't want to hack those. Now we move on to the pricings. Assuming again the average of 1,766 per square foot, right? This could translate the 4-bedroom premium to be about 2 mil to about 2.2 million. Of course, it could start on the lower end if it were to be based on the price guide of 1,006 plus, right? But this one, I'm just buffering you for a bit more. It could be even more actually. Moving on to the 5-bedroom premium, right? There are only 22 units. So if you have the financial capability and if you are eligible, right? Oh, fingers crossed, your luck must be very good, because what we see for Aurora at Tampines, right? The 5-bedroom, even though they are on a much higher quantum, and even though the loan is restricted, right? Wow, the 5-bedroom is still being snapped up. So anyway, back to here. So E1, we have 1,367 square feet, and E2, we have 1,421 square feet. So essentially, it's quite similar to your 4-bedroom premium. It's just that you have one extra here, and also you have a bit more bigger in terms of living and dining area, as what you see from here. But 5-bedroom, right, take note, you got no space for your shoe cabinet. You really can only put your shoe cabinet here, which then eats into your dining space and also is right beside your sofa. Most of the time, right, what I see people do, they do one whole line of carpentry. TV console is here, and then your shoe cabinet is here, such that your whole wall is a bit seamless. But by that being said, right, your sofa need to change side, which I don't know if your sofa... That's not very big. But anyway, I leave it to you and your ID to figure it out. But that being said, you walk in, your dry kitchen, living, dining, incredibly spacious, and all of your bedrooms can fit a queen size bed while still having a walk-in wardrobe for your master bedroom. So this 1,367 square feet and 1,421, where is the difference? The difference is in the balcony outside the common bedroom that you have over here. Everything else I see is really pretty much the same. The only gripe is that, again, your kitchen is tucked away on this side. You don't have like a bar counter or like the option to make it an open concept kitchen. And also at the same time, right, because the space is a bit tight, I would say, for a 5-bedroom, the moment you walk in, assuming you put a huge ass fridge because your family is bigger, your kitchen will be small. But then again, right, there's nowhere else for you to put your fridge. You put inside, you put outside, also no space. So this 5-bedroom, you do have to compromise a bit on the kitchen space. So the pricing wise, assuming an average of 1,007 per square foot, actually Aurel, right, Aurel's 5-bedroom has transacted 100%, so 2.4, 2.5 million, as though it's a piece of cake. And also, I mentioned earlier, right, assuming your loan is only at a maximum of 1 to 1.2 million, buying into a 5-bedroom means you potentially need to cough out 1.5 million in cash or CPF. Even if you are eligible and your income ceiling is at 16k, and assuming nearing to TOP, let's say 3 to 4 years later, your income increased up to like 20, 22k and can borrow for more. But even then, because of the MSR framework, 30%, your loan, your cash confirm is in 1 million plus one. So as to how Singaporeans can afford, you know, I know. That being said, that brings us to the end of today's video. If you would like to find out more, not just for Coasta Cabana, for the upcoming ECs, or if you need help in understanding the market moving forward 2026 and beyond, not just the EC market, it could be HDB, it could be condo, it could be landed as well. I do all of those. Feel free to reach out to me. Also, please help to like and share and subscribe to my channel if you like such content, as it will really motivate me to create more in the future. Thank you!